Greetings and welcome, everyone. You are in an episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show, powerful conversations for living your best life. And I am excited about our guest today because I don't think that we have actually focused on this topic before. Cancer doesn't happen overnight, and it's going to be a deep conversation, but we're going to try and keep it light enough so that you know that there is hope and there is a space of livelihood and thriving. Even if you've been diagnosed, you're fearful of being diagnosed, or you're on the other side and you want to make sure that this thing never invades your body again. So kick back, pull up a chair, whatever you have to do. You're driving, keep driving, listen. We're excited too because now we're not only on web TV, we are also a podcast show. And I am extremely excited about that. So, without further ado, let me tell you about our guest today, Susan Levin. She is a certified health coach, but considers herself more of a medical detective. For over 30 years, she worked alongside her husband, Dr. Warren Levin, as pioneers in the industry, in the world of integrated and alternative medicine. Today, she carries on with her mission and moves in her passion to educate women about the possible options, treatments, and protocols that are available to them by helping them to build and coordinate a support team to steer a course towards complete healing and recovery. She's a passionate advocate for integrated medicine, and as a patient care person, she has testified in government hearings, and today she's bringing her 35 plus years of knowledge to wisdom, searching for the answers of why, what, how, when, and I'll let her tell you more about her journey and some of the things that she is doing now and the functional medicine publication that she's looking forward to being an author of an article in coming out recent or soon. Um, Let me just share that Susan Levin is our guest today, and she is an amazing cancer survivor, your medical detective. Susan, hi, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And I'm thrilled to be here and really share and empower women and provide support, help, guidance, advocacy, you name it.
Well, it is definitely needed because I think that as women, we have learned so much about just holding our voice and having made it hard to ask for what we want and to ask the questions that we're curious about and continue to ask until we get sufficient answers. And so with that, welcome, and let's jump right in. And I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get through this, adulthood and into this space of really being passionate about empowering women?
Well, it's a lot of people say it's the shock of their life, and this definitely was. And the shock came to me on March 11th, 2021. I actually went, I had gone for a colonoscopy because I hadn't had one for years, and it was perfect. Great, no problem. But for 2 weeks after that, I was really, really sick. And so I called my doctor, and he sent me for a CAT scan. I thought, okay, no big deal. I'll do that. Whatever it is, we'll take care of it. No big deal. I figured I had worked with enzymes and probiotics and bone broth, but as I say, I was really quite uncomfortable. So I went for the CAT scan and then got a phone call at 4:00 on March 11th of 2021. And the doctor just started reeling off the results of my CAT scan. So the first time he read it, you can imagine, or if you've had cancer or you're dealing with it now, you can imagine the shock of someone suddenly reading the result of a CAT scan with no imagination as to what that CAT scan would say.
And this
So
is over
after
the phone?
over the phone, didn't ask me to come in. He's a gastroenterologist. I told him he had to read it to me again. So that was the second time. The third time, I'm not sure, Lynn, if I told him to shut up, but it was finally sinking in. I said to him, "Where is my test result?" And he said, "I'm faxing it." And the last thing he said to me is, "You need to find an oncologist and a surgeon." That was the last words I had with this doctor. Incredible, right? And I tell the story because it is so outrageous. It is unacceptable. And perhaps if I were in his shoes, I mean, I would have said, "Susan, you're not that far away. Come on in and let's have a consult. Let's talk." But how doctors treat women is absolutely unacceptable. And so one of my goals is to empower women and educate them. That puts them in the driver's seat and as partners. So for me, I went through, I had a surgeon who did the surgery when we sat down and talked afterwards, and she knew up front that I had been doing all kinds of alternative therapy, because the moment I found out at 4:30 that day, Lynn, I happened to have a phone meeting with a physician that was my colleague that I work with clients of mine, Dr. Red Bergeron, and he's in Roswell. And he's always on time, Lynn. Amazing, right? And I texted him and said, "I know you're going to be on time, but whatever we're going to talk about, forget it. I'm sending you a fax, and the fax is going to tell you I've got metastatic ovarian cancer." So he called me, and right on time. And, I said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, I don't like the report, but I know my now patient, because now I moved from being a colleague to being actually a colleague and a medical detective and a patient. So I'm both, really, right?" And anyway, so within days, I would at his office, and I was making lists of all kinds of labs I wanted done. I wanted baselines done, which I think is so important before anything starts. So I follow my blood work, but this was really important to me. We got in, and then we determined what kind of protocol I should be on to really ramp my immune system up and help prepare me for war, because I was going to war. And by the way, people said to me, "Well, weren't you afraid?" If I was afraid, Lynn, I didn't know it. A friend of mine, someone asked me about dying. I didn't have no way am I dying. There's just absolutely not even a possibility. So I went in with this and with God. I mean, I know I looked up and I prayed. I'm Jewish. And I prayed for God to guide me and to provide me with emotional support, if you will, and spiritual. And it has been for me one of the most incredible journeys about this, of how close I have come to my God, And there are things, by the way, I have done in appreciation, because I feel that my God has really been there for me. I have flown through stage 3C4, high serous cancer, metastatic. There were no lymph nodes. I was okay. That was great. But I had a hysterectomy and didn't have a really good, if you will, outlook. Although, frankly, one thing I didn't do was I didn't look at the pathology report till later on. It was the one thing I knew my CAT scan, I knew my blood work after the surgery, and I got my path report. I read it, but I decided in a way it didn't matter. It's almost like, you know what, your genes don't matter. What matters is your environment, right? And so you can change your outlook, you can change your outcome, even if you can't change your genes, even if they're designer genes, right? Right? So I set out immediately. I found a surgeon. I heard she was the best. I had two references on her. Okay, she knew I was doing all these IVs and nutrients. Because I told her. After the surgery, I came back. She was amazed how my stitches were healing. In fact, they didn't have to remove any. And then we sat down for the conversation. And the conversation was, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be using this platinum drug, and we're going to be using Taxol. And I said, well, how long have you been using this? Oh, we've been using this 20 years. I said, you mean to tell me there's been no advances or changes in all of this time? Oh, and she said, well, we use another drug called Avastin. Okay, so I said, all right, I want to read up on these drugs. I want to know more about the potential side effects and the downside. And of course, I'm going to continue with my nutrient IVs. And not only did I, by the way, have my functional medicine oncologist, but I also have a brilliant herbalist. And I also have a brilliant hypnotherapist that I've worked with for years and knows me. So I have a team, and I was determined, I wanted a team where my oncologist would become part of the team. So when I mentioned the work I plan to do, she looked up at me and said, Susan, I think you should go to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And with that moment, the waters parted, right? Because no way, I don't care how good people thought she was not for me. So I want to say to the women and people listening to this, you need to love your oncologist. She may have and provide incredible help to you, but you have got to have a complete team. And so with that, I left and I reached out to a dear friend, actually in New York, who was with Columbia Presbyterian, and he did some research, came back and recommended a doctor who does clinical trials and don't at Emory. Okay, and I was told, you go to Emory. This is where the clinical trials are, and this is where the work is being done, and this is the best in in the South, and so on. And so I went to see a doctor recommended by this dear friend, and he's rather brilliant. He sat with me for about 45 minutes, and I had a litany of questions to ask him. And one of the most important things that came out was, no way would he recommend this drug, Avastin. In fact, he feels the drug is dangerous. And
that's a rarity. You don't often hear that from doctors.
That's right. That's right. And he said, no, I won't do it. I think it can cause significant adverse reactions. Now, I've heard other things, but this doctor was so strong in conveying this to me that I had to take what he was saying, and look into it, which I got some people to do for me and so on. Again, I've heard great things, but he said, no. Okay. I really liked him, and he got me started. And by the way, no one, Lynn, sat down with me to say that I had to do chemotherapy or I had to do conventional therapy. That, again, in a sense, was a conversation I had with God. I just felt, I come from a world of alternative, complementary, functional, integrative medicine. To me, chemotherapy, I said to one of my doctors, that's not in the dictionary of mine. It's not in my dictionary, right? And I said, so it was something I couldn't even begin to fathom or think about, but certainly with the CAT scan and with labs, it certainly, I had to sit down and think about it. My functional medicine oncologist said, you may want to consider doing a few treatments. That's all he said. My herbalist said, you may want to consider doing a few treatments. Very interesting. But no one was pushing me into this, Lynn. Okay. So the question was, one, could I undertake this? And after all, I had already been preparing and gone through surgery well, and so on. Okay. So now I said, I think I'm going to do this. And by the way, by the time I got to my second chemo, I had a new doctor. And my doctor is Jane Mizels at Emory. She's absolutely brilliant. She is young. She has certainly studied and done fellowships, you know, at Sloan Kettering and so on. And she's young and vibrant. And anyway, someone told me about her. I had to see if I'd be accepted. I got in. So so I ended up with 3 doctors. And when I sat down, I knew I was home. She was totally open to everything I was doing. She had no objections to my intravenous vitamin C. She had no objections to DMSO. She had no objections. And my functional medicine oncologist, we use something called selenomycin. So selenomycin is an antibiotic that happens to work as a chemotherapeutic drug for men with prostate cancer and women with ovarian cancer. And it causes apoptosis of the cancer cells. So that was part of my program. But Jane had no problem. So I soared through. Believe it or not, I mean, there were people losing their hair after the first treatment and so on. I did not really lose my hair till after the 3rd treatment. And I attributed that to my 62 vitamins a day. Yes. And I will teach women how to handle these supplements because they're so important in defending the body with all kinds of supplements and natural anti-inflammatories and mushroom and nutrients. And you want to make sure that your vitamin D, because I've always had a robust D, but I got cancer and my robust D for me dropped to 62. Now, doctors would say that's great, but I'm used to having mine at 80. And so I started to ramp up my D3. And actually, my D is now very high. It's 130. However, my functional medicine doctor said to me last week, he said, it's okay, let's keep it high because vitamin D3 and K2 is so important. So I have been on this journey doing great. I went to a woman and got a beautiful wig made because I knew I was going to lose my hair. And it was gorgeous, so gorgeous. People didn't know it wasn't my hair, right? And I had what they call in Israel tichels, all kinds of interesting scarves I could wear. And but what happened was after the 4th treatment, I planned on going on vacation because I thought I was doing great, but things really started to slow down for me. Now I was going for my IVs every week and doing everything. And by the way, one of the most important things that anyone can do, and I know you're going to ask me about this, is diet. So I went on the Keto for Cancer diet. Why? For me, the reason was that you need to be sure that you starve all sugar out of your body. It is the most important thing that you can be doing. You may not be able to afford to do all the IVs and the herbalist and the this. And so I am telling you, the most important thing is you must starve the sugar out of your body. Because sugar and cancer cells have an affinity. Not only that, but copper and cancer has an affinity. So copper is a level that you must test. There are many other inflammatory markers I can share with you and talk with you. But anyway, after the 4th treatment, and I was trying to get ready to go on vacation, I went to a concert to hear James Taylor. That was 2 days before I was leaving. By the time I walked out of the concert, I had to sit on the sidewalk, and my friends went and got the car because the energy. I'm a very energetic. The way you see me is how you get me. And I am energetic and dynamic, and I am go, right? And everything in my being was focused on getting rid of this cancer, visualizing about it, protecting my healthy cells and my healthy system, you know, my muscles, everything, keeping things crystal and clear and so on. But I got home from that and I texted my dear friend, Susan, who I was going to the beach with, and I said, I'm going to bed. I was in bed for almost a month. I mean, I was taken for my IVs, but I was wiped out. So I had a telemedicine visit with my oncologist, with Jane, and she had never seen me this way. She had never seen me cry. It's because it was like, I don't have time to cry, you know. It's like, let's get on with the business of getting me healthy. That's my focus. And that is my, in that sense, my sole focus. But, and I started to cry, and she looked at me and she said, Susan, I think the quality of your life is just as important. And I said, Jane, I think I'm done. And she said, Susan, I am going to respect that. So with that, it was an end for the chemo.
Okay, so you had 4 treatments.
4 treatments, right.
And that was the end. And
I was done August 12th of 21. And as I said, it was really not until the end of September. I remember I woke up one morning and it was like, because I was afraid, the one thing I was afraid of, would I get my energy back? Right? And by the way, even Dr. Bergeron, he decided that this selenomycin might be too much for me at this point. And so we changed. So, you know, it's like when you're taking off on a plane, in a plane, right? The pilot. Well, the pilot is going to move, right? Those wings have to move. You've got to find a balance, and you've got to look at the risk benefit rewards, right? And so we stopped that specific part of the IV and we did other things instead. So you've got to be able to be flexible and adapt, okay? And then Jane and I decided that which I had been doing, by the way, I keep a spreadsheet of all my specialty labs. So I can see my progress and how I'm doing. And there are some specialty labs that I do that are really specific in terms of possible tumor markers. And even the program I'm on now is all about preventing angiogenesis, preventing the growth of the cells.
Well,
So
you
let
know
me
what?
just go back.
That actually is a great segue to my next question. I
Okay,
want to get this
okay,
in.
okay,
Your story is so compelling about, the fact that this doesn't just happen to you, and what do you do
right,
when it happens?
right,
And, it occurred to me one day, because my daughter has gone through an
right,
incident herself, and it was like cancer doesn't just show up one day,
right.
right?
No,
Um,
definitely
there,
not.
there's a
Yeah,
place of origin, and it
right,
grows, and it
right,
impacts something to basically
right,
wake you up to the fact that
right,
it's there and needs
right.
attention.
Correct.
And so let's start at the beginning
Okay.
of this
Hmm.
process,
Hmm.
because it's starting and growing and then catching your attention
Right,
and then remediation. That's the process. But
right.
let's talk about the starting point.
Hmm.
How can we think about prevention
Okay.
a different way
Right,
than we have? Because I
right,
think some people think, oh, it's not going to happen to me, or unless it's happened in my family, it doesn't, it's not going to come and knock on my door.
right,
How do we really get into this frame of prevention?
right. Okay. So I have been on a prevention journey for years. My diet has been certainly all at home, and as much as I can, and I'm careful when I go to restaurants. I've been once, I would say 40 years ago, I was at a McDonald's. That was it. That I have never been to a Chick-fil-A or any of these places. So that is number one. And that is prevention, if you will, because you can't read the labels on the foods when you go to those places, right? There's no labels. And I guarantee you that food is not real. It's loaded with sugar, and it's loaded with refined carbohydrates, and it's got fillers, and you don't know if there are pesticides in it or whatever there is, but it is not healthy. So that is number one. And again, I say diet truly is number one. Now, look, there are many roads to the top of the mountain, right? So the one thing I felt, by the way, and especially going through the initial stages, if you will, of chemo, is protein is really important. Less so after the fact. So there are a lot of there are so many different dietary lifestyles out there, but I think the most important thing in prevention is no sugar in your diet, or as little. If we want to talk about fruits, berries, that kind of thing, but we want as much as possible, if you can, organic vegetables, things with healthy fats. You don't want to eat the bad fats. You don't want to use margarine in your home. You want to use coconut oil, and you want to use olive oil, and you want to use, there are so many good organic oils that are out there. So your essential fatty acids. And you need in your diet, because of the way food is grown now, even with organic food, and because the soil is not as rich as it was 100 years ago or so. So you want food that is as clean as possible. And to that, because the soil isn't so great, you need to add basic supplements. You just can't get the most from any food. Now, we've finally all learned, many of us knew, that this whole thing about fat was a farce. So healthy fat, our brains are all fat practically, and we need healthy fat. It helps people when they get arthritis, or they've got tight joints, or whatever it is that they've got. So to the baseline of diet, you need to add supplements. So what kind of supplements would I say is part of a prevention program? D3 and K2. And I say a minimum of 5,000 milligrams a day. You want to get your vitamin D checked by your doctor. You don't want to be in the 30, the range is 30 to 100 now. That's all been changed because of how chronically ill people are. That's how you get a reference range, right? So to me, being 30 means you are hanging on by your fingertips. You're just holding on for dear life. Well, I don't want you there. I want you at, let's say, 60, okay? You don't have to be where I am. And unless you are immune compromised, then you may want a higher dose. But it's really important for you to be on D3 with K2, because the K2 is really supporting your bones and your body and so on. Vitamins, yeah.
Let me ask about the D3 and K2, because
Sure.
in studying alkaline vegetables, alkaline foods,
Right.
there are some that are really high in D3 and K2.
Right.
But tell us a little bit about what those do. Do
Right.
they help the body to absorb other nutrients that you get from your food? Why
Right.
are they so
Well,
important?
what they, to me, is about is strengthening your immune system. To me, that is the most important thing about these supplements. And especially when you are fighting for your life, as I have, or helping my clients, they've got chronic Lyme disease, they've got fibromyalgia, they've got Crohn's disease, they've got colitis. I need to help. When your immune system is compromised, your level of vitamin D goes down. So it's, for that reason, to me, it's the most important. And along with it, you should, the K2, which is important for our bones and again, our immune system, they work together. The next vitamin that's absolutely essential, and by the way, we don't make it, and that's vitamin C. Somehow in God's wisdom, once he got past the chimpanzee, we were left out. So let me tell you, if you never drink juice again for the rest of your life, you are doing yourself a favor. You're not getting the C you need from your orange juice or your, apple juice or whatever. Juices are loaded with sugar. So don't think twice. You don't need the juice, but you do need vitamin C because we don't make it. And vitamin C is so important to our immune system. And we have seen how scientists and physicians and alternative functional medicine doctors recommend high dose vitamin C. Now, what does that mean? To me, a maintenance dose is about 3,000 milligrams a day. But for me, not only was I getting 30 grams in my IVs every week, but I was taking about 7,000 milligrams a day. I'm not saying you have to do that. If you're looking at prevention, and that's why you're listening, then 3,000 milligrams. There have been experiments done for years, and one of them was a dentist that wanted to test one of his dental students, and he did some what they call puncture biopsies, not fun in the gums. Well, giving vitamin C just healed those gums and healed the teeth. So when people have periodontal disease, one of the best things they can use is brushing with vitamin C powder and taking vitamin C. It is, I feel, one of the reasons my wound healed because I had a total hysterectomy. Vitamin C is so important. By the way, I begged, demanded, asked in the hospital. Oh no, they would not give me any vitamin C. But it's not their protocol. They don't do it. So, I mean, you have to kind of figure out where you're going to fight.
And that's a whole nother conversation, isn't
Yeah.
it? You
Yeah,
know, if you do have to be hospitalized, you've
right.
got the selection of the hospital menu, or you
Oh,
don't eat.
you don't
And
take it with you, right?
mhm,
Nothing,
and
right?
it's amazing how, you know, especially with hospitals and their cuisine, their staff in the food area are
Yeah.
supposed to be so well versed on what's healthy
Hmm.
for patients to eat.
Hmm.
And yet for decades, we were being served the whole line about the standard American diet.
Right, right. Which is
And
sad, very sad.
it really is. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was saying how you need to turn the acronym upside down,
Hmm.
and add another letter. And I don't remember how he said it. It was just so
Yeah,
profound, but
yeah.
it really is the disruption of turning it upside down.
Hmm.
But Susan, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
As a survivor, with what you experienced, you gave us an indication of the initial emotional
Mhm.
impact, the
Right,
shock that you
right,
had.
right.
And then you talked about the determination to find a path
Hmm.
to journey.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about not necessarily your medical support team, because you went
Right.
into, tell us
Sure.
about your emotional support team.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that was recommended was that I have a therapist, and so my oncologist recommended this woman, um, and I agreed to have the session with her. It was telemedicine, because still in the midst of the pandemic. And I had the session with her, and I got off the phone and I said, this is not for me. This didn't resonate. And with that, I called Dr. Lewis Heller, who was an OBGYN. He's located in Phoenix, Arizona. He is a dear friend. My husband and I owned a home for a few years in Arizona. And that's how I met him. And he is a brilliant hypnotherapist. And I had a personal crisis while I was in Arizona, and he really helped turn me around. And I thought, after speaking to this young woman and so on, I said, she didn't know me. She didn't know anything about me. Nothing. I need to find someone that knows me that I can connect with. So if I need to cry or whatever, or however I'm feeling or questioning, and he was perfect. Not because he was an OBGYN, so he could also look at my labs, but he knows my soul and he knows my spirit. And so the way we worked was I would schedule a session as I needed, and we would spend often, which is highly unusual, 45 minutes to an hour, just talking about how I was feeling and what I was dealing with. And certainly, I think for many women, as for me, and losing my hair was profound. I had to find a way to deal with that. So I can't tell you I sailed through this, but for one, he was really quite available, as busy as he was, as I need him. And after we'd have our conversation, then I would lie down on my couch here, and this was all by Zoom, and we would do a relaxation exercise, and then I would go into a deeper state or a hypnotic state. I would say it was a deep state. And he would record for me a session that I could use whenever I needed at home. And the session would be based on the conversation we had that day. So he would kind of pick the pearls, the most important things spiritually, thoughts, dreams, profound, whatever. And that would generally be about a 20 or 25-minute session. And then he would send me the recording. And my daughter would say to me when I had my moments, she'd say, call Lou, because sometimes when you're having a problem, it's hard, right, to reach out. And then I would call him, and then she'd call me later, and she could hear my voice, and she'd say, yes, Mom, just what you needed. Now, the other thing is, I contacted my rabbi. And also, I contacted my daughter's rabbi. Now, I am what's called Reformed in the Jewish faith. My daughter is Orthodox, and I've gotten to know her rabbi very well through the years that I've been in Georgia, now about 6 years. But I wanted to get support from each of them. And so I met with each of them. And the most interesting thing, Lynn, that they said to me was, Susan, you are going to be a much better health coach, medical detective than you have ever been, because you have now been where your patients have been. And it's true. You don't know what it's like until you have cancer, right? You might talk to a friend or someone, but until you are in that chair, dealing with that in every way, shape, and form. And I would made it a practice to reach out to my rabbis. Also, in my temple, they have something in Jewish called Refuah Shlema, which is praying for a return to health. Now, for me, at this time, very few people knew I had cancer. I have a very close set of friends. My friends were incredible. I mean, when I was in bed, people were bringing food and preparing food, and that's not an easy kind of thing to do for me because I'm so specific, okay? But I had my friends and my support, and my daughter arranged for people to be praying for me throughout this, and actually they are still praying for me because yes, I am on the other side. As a matter of fact, after my first CAT scan in October 28th from the first one, it was the second one, and I was declared cancer free, which I already knew based on my blood work. But after that, you know, it was, even then I was kind of keeping it to myself because even at my temple, I didn't want people talking about me because here I am, a health coach. I eat organically healthy. I exercise. I get good sleep, which is important. Your spirituality is important. It's important in your life now where you are to have that mindset, to have that in place, and the mindfulness and learning how to deal with stress, right? So those are to me, the things that are so important. But I couldn't have made this journey. Oh my goodness, Lynn, I could not have made this journey without my daughter.
Family.
I can't even,
Yes.
I can just cry. Having to tell her was the most difficult. So I have an incredible relationship with my daughter. We didn't tell my grandchildren knew, and the older ones knew I had a big surgery, but we never used the word cancer, you know, and I just wanted to be who I was, you know, as much as I was, and so on. So
That's so
having
key.
your,
And I really want to emphasize
yeah,
the elements of that you brought in.
right,
Um, a hypnotherapist, spiritual support through your synagogue or
right,
church,
right, exactly.
friends and family, and specifically those praying for you and with you. I
Right.
think that is so key too, that and I can really appreciate you wanting to keep the circle
Mhm,
closed
mhm.
as far as who knew, because that energy of support is so important.
Right.
And it's one of the lifestyle things that we talk about here on the
Mhm,
show.
mhm.
The show is based on the premise of using lifestyle and
Right.
food as medicine. And you
Yes.
just said how important these pieces are. They were part of your medical team,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so,
Exactly.
as you're helping people, and you start with the how do we get you into this strength of recovery and getting
Right.
you back to vibrant and good health. Um, what do you find that most women are learning? The number one thing that women are learning as they are embarking on or in this
Mhm.
recovery
Right.
journey.
Right. Well, I think depending on how you obviously approach this event, right? If that I so believe in women and women's intuition and women's intention, that their power is there, that they do not have to turn it over to a physician per se, or a team, or anyone. Your doctors must be your partner. So if you have someone and you can recognize it, that you're sitting across from a doctor that's saying, okay, this is what you have, this is the test we're going to do, this is the treatment we're going to do, and we're going to get scheduled. Excuse me, where am I in this? So for me, women can call on their power and their strength and their making sure they are going to make sure that they are going to get what they need along this journey. They need their doctors, but you need to make sure, as I said before, if you don't like the first opinion, go for the second and go for the third, and don't be afraid. And the other thing is, well, there's two things. One is that cancer is not a death sentence. It is not.
Mhm.
And for me, crazy as it was that, and I don't know how you as a listener think about this, but I realized very quickly that my diagnosis, the day I got diagnosed, was the day my life was going to be saved. Okay. It was really, thank you, God. Can you imagine? But you as women can do this. Thank you, God, because this didn't just happen.
Right.
And God, let me tell you, being a medical detective, you should know how much time I have spent going back years in terms of my diet, my supplements, my bioidentical hormones, which I don't think had anything to do with this, by the way. But so to me, women must be respected. That your doctor must know, and your doctor has to know who they're dealing with. Rhett knew. He said to me when I asked him way back or at some point, so what did you think when we talked that day. And he said, I didn't like the report, but I know my patient.
Mhm.
And with that, we will go. And it was reviewing everything and going over suggestions and recommendations. And so, and again, you have a world of information. So there are things, by the way, Len, I would research. So women should research. Don't just take the first drug that's being recommended when there may be really good alternatives. I mean, when I treat my clients for Lyme disease, since I'm not an MD, I can't use antibiotics, which is standard treatment in many respects, not all. I do everything naturally, and I can get the same results. It may take longer, but so for me, it's women taking their power back and owning it and experiencing it and understanding that this is not going to happen to them. Whatever is going to be done is going to be done with them and with their approval and with their agreement. Surely you got to sign all these documents away, right? Sign. You're signing away your life. But I think this is so important because there is such an epidemic of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And of course, ovarian cancer is a silent cancer.
Mhm.
And so for me, again, I knew that. I knew that before I knew I had ovarian cancer, right?
Mhm.
So again, when things happen to us, to women, ultimately, I believe you can find a point of reference. And suddenly, like that aha moment that I had of, thank God, because I was reluctant, by the way, you know, I thought I should get a colonoscopy done. I hadn't had one done for 16 years. I didn't really have any symptoms. I went and did the colonoscopy, and the only thing the doctor said to me, said, everything is fine. Nothing, no big deal about anything. The only thing he said is, God, you're so tight and so little. Next time they should use a pediatric device. Well, but that's ultimately how I found out. I got sick, right? And then I found out. But honestly, I don't know where I would be today. I might not be here having this conversation with you, Lynn. I mean, I don't know, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I know I would have had the wrath of whatever from friends, right? Which is something you have to take command of, by the way. But I know if I had just said, oh, I'm just going to do alternative medicine, I don't know.
Mhm.
I know you know, it would have been like dealing with fighting with people. Okay.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want to tell you something really important, by the way. There
Okay.
is a new study that has just come out. If women just do chemotherapy, okay, and this is also for other cancers, then there is a 70% recurrence of cancer.
Wow.
That's right. So it's like, what you do today, one, will helpfully prevent. Whatever I've done helped to protect me in certain ways, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But as you say, it didn't happen
Overnight.
from nothing. And
Exactly.
I'll never know. The other thing, by the way, that's so important is when you get a CAT scan, the other thing is when you have surgery, is they can take your tissue, your DNA, and it's tested genetically. So that's very, very important. The other thing I did was a test that was done in Greece called RGCC. my blood went to Greece, and it was like biopsying my blood cells and then determining the level of sensitivity to the drugs I might receive or take, as well as nutrients and supplements. And then by the way, was ultimately taking this RGCC test and what's called Family Foundation, putting them together. And that's how my doctor post chemo determined what the supplements would be that I would take. So
that is amazing,
yeah.
that we have advanced to that degree.
Mhm.
And going back to your point about, determining what course of treatment you're going to take, that was one of the questions that I asked my daughter when the oncologist had said, we're going to set you up to do this, 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 and this.
Right.
And she said, and asked about, how successful has this been? Well, we've been using this for the last 20 years.
Right.
Like in 20 years, there had to have been some advancements that, you've
Right.
improved upon what you were
Right.
doing 20 years
Right.
ago. And if not, is it that successful that you wouldn't? And that was a question that didn't get asked or answered.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was interesting as well. But then I want to come to your point about, because you just shared so much great wisdom and strategy
Mhm.
about how we can better take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
You spoke about our intuition.
Mhm.
And I truly want to acknowledge you for um, listening and acknowledging your own intuition to get the colonoscopy, because
Mhm.
cleaning our system out,
Mhm.
and then allowing the natural forces to regroup,
Mhm.
and the message could be heard that
Right.
your body was probably trying to tell you for some time before,
Mhm.
for it to
Right.
have gotten to that point. You
Right.
never know how long it's been going on.
Right.
I mean, I had a friend tell me one time that she had been diagnosed with an aggressive breast cancer, and she did a mammogram the year before, totally clean. And a
Mhm.
year later, she's developed all of this. And it's kind of like, so that's a short period of time for
Mhm.
this aggressive cancer to be
Right.
forming and moving.
Mhm.
And yet I'm also told that there are some cancers that live in your body for decades
Yeah.
before
Right.
it gets to the point where it's really calling attention to
Right.
itself.
Right.
And
Right.
so I love that. Is there another piece of wisdom that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today,
Mhm.
that really brings things to center point for women who really want to take better care of themselves?
All right. Well, one thing that I have now, I am cancer free. However, the cancer I have is very tricky. And based on statistics, and by the way, you are not a statistic, and neither am I. And remember that you are not a statistic. If you're doing, I know what I'm doing is so out of the box. Okay. No am I, but you're not a statistic either if you're listening to this today. We are not statistics, and we can change our outcomes. So that's one thing to remember. And the other is I have an affirmation. So to me, affirmations are very empowering. When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do, and I don't know Hebrew well enough to say it for you, but I'm thanking God for returning my soul to me for another day. That's one. The other thing I say, which Dr. Heller, my hypnotherapist, helped me with, and that is I am in the 80% remission. And I will be and am in the 20% that will not have a recurrence. So for the challenges that you may be facing, which is why you're listening to this and to Lynn's incredible programs and trying to share rich information and help, just come to yourself, be it with prayer, meditation, and find the things that perhaps you need to address, maybe you haven't wanted to address. Maybe you've had symptoms, but you've been putting off going to a doctor, any doctor. Because if you don't, that can really mean, it can mean life or death. By the way, there are 2 other breast exams that I just want to mention, Lynn, which I have used for years. I go for ultrasound for my breasts, and I go for thermography where they use heat. I'm not comfortable personally. Everyone must decide for themselves, but I did a baseline mammography when I was 40 years old, and that was it. I've never done another mammography. I'm just not comfortable with the radiation and the squeezing of the breasts and so on. But again, you have a world of options. You know, I'm studying now with Dr. Nasha Winters, who wrote the book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer. And I am now studying that, as you mentioned, and will get even more certification in my work. It's a year-long program. But there is so much information out there. I have books and books and books. I mean, I've got books here and I've got books in my living room, and I mean, I keep buying more books, and there's so much out there. And the last thing I want to share with you is the newest thing I'm doing, and that is called Mistletoe Therapy. Mistletoe, you know about mistletoe, it's right. You've got mistletoe in your home at Christmas and you kiss under the mistletoe. Mistletoe is a profound, it's an anthroposophical treatment, if you will, and it's incredible in improving the immune system. And so if you are dealing with a chronic illness, and that could be rheumatoid arthritis or Crohn's or colitis or cancer or Lyme, I think this is potentially an incredible therapy. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. The newest book out, where do I have it, is on mistletoe and the integrative approach to oncology. The last thing I want to say is I'm studying the metabolic approach to cancer. As far as I'm concerned, this is the metabolic approach to health. You can cross out cancer, and I say if you take the time to read this book, no, you don't have cancer, wonderful. Read this book because it is about the metabolic approach. It's about pesticides, and it's about hormones, and it's about antibiotics, and it's about the stressors in your body, and about diet and so on. There is a world of information. Don't go in with blinders. But again, if you have a problem, go and seek help. Again, if you don't like that opinion, fine, but you need to find out what's going on in your body. And your intuition and your body is brilliant. Your body gives us messages. Mm-hmm. Our body gives us messages. We just have to listen. Mm-hmm. And then we need to act on it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Very well said. And
thank you.
So important for us to hear. Mm-hmm. You know, nobody is going to advocate for you individually,
right,
better than you. And
right.
we really have to grow to be more confident in our approach to our own health and well-being. Mm-hmm. We take care of our families, our kids, our spouses and partners, mm-hmm. and yet when it comes to ourselves, we're, you know, on the back burner.
That's
or
right.
You know,
that's right.
What if, and one of the big things, what if I find something and then I have to deal with it, and then all the attention will be on me, and
Right,
It's not what I'm used to. And it's like,
right.
get over it, because if you aren't healthy, you're not going to be here. And you'll
That's
have
right.
people pouring over you and you won't even hear what they have to say, at least not in
You
this realm.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And buying a gorgeous pair of shoes or a fabulous bag, in the end, it may help you feel better for a moment, but if your body is talking to you, please take action and then know that there are options that are out there today. And I do believe the approach I'm studying and the approach we've used in my work on my body and with this cancer, I know that this metabolic, I truly believe, Lynn, that this metabolic approach will become this standard of care ultimately. I truly do believe it, because we're learning so much about genetics, and again, I had genetic testing. I mean, there's so much out there that is available. Just do your due diligence, because you have one life. You have one life. And I will tell you, my life every day is full of joy and excitement and learning. I'm so excited about the new things I'm learning. I can't tell you, it's just fabulous. It's like going back to school, but this is just great. So I just wish everyone listening that this has been meaningful for them. And Lynn, I so appreciate your giving me the time and to share. I would love to do it again. I mean, we have one life to live. Make it rich, make it meaningful, make it valuable. Take care of your body. Love your body. If you eat well, you are loving your body, and it knows it. And it knows if you're not taking good care of it. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much,
Thank
Susan.
you. Thank
Oh my
you.
gosh, this has been so rich and
Thank you.
meaningful. And with our audience being
Mhm.
98% women, this is
Uh-huh.
so valuable.
Right.
And I want to wrap up by letting our audience know that Susan's LinkedIn information will be posted in
Mhm.
below this video. So reach out to her, let her know that you heard her on our show,
Mhm.
and get the medical detective to help you figure out what's best for your health journey.
Okay.
And we are going to have another exciting episode next week. So everyone, please do us the favor of sharing, turn on your notifications, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and come back and join us again next week. So, with that
Thank you,
in mind,
Lynn. Thank you so much.
thank you, Susan. This
You
has
bet.
really been a pleasure. And we're going to do something else in the future, I am
Okay.
certain.
Okay. All
To
right.
our
Thank
audience,
you.
be well, live, love, be a bigger positive impact maker in your world. And we'll see you next time. Bye for
Okay.
now.